The night was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. He stood by the window, staring at the dark road that led to his small house. For 15 years, he had lived in fear, hiding from the one person who had made his life a nightmare. The memory of her shadow, always chasing, always hunting, had haunted him for years. Every plan he made, every move he took, was to stay one step ahead. But now something was different. He could feel it in the air. Someone was coming. A faint noise made him freeze. Footsteps on the gravel outside. Slow, deliberate, familiar. He stepped back from the window, holding his breath, his heart pounding. The Huntress had finally found him. 15 years of running, of hiding in plain sight, and now it was over. He remembered the first time he saw her. She was relentless, fierce, and unyielding. Back then, he had been young and reckless, thinking he could escape her forever. But time had taught him patience. And patience had kept him alive. He moved silently through the house, checking the doors and windows, making sure nothing was left open. Every corner, every shadow felt like it was watching him. Memories of the past flooded his mind, close calls, narrow escapes, and the people he had tried to protect who were now gone. 9 of them, taken by her, one by one. Each loss had left a scar. Each scar a reminder of the Huntress's skill and determination. The wind outside carried a chill that seemed to seep into his bones. He could see the moonlight casting shadows on the ground, long and dark, as if stretching toward him. He knew he had only a moment before she would reach the house. He gripped the edge of the table, feeling the rough wood under his fingers, grounding himself. He had prepared for this moment, trained for it. And yet the fear was still real. Then he heard a soft, deliberate step on the porch. He took a deep breath and straightened up. The years of fear, the years of running, had led to this moment. When the door creaked open slowly, he spoke, his voice steady but low, carrying the weight of 15 years of waiting. "You're finally here." Outside, the Huntress paused, sensing the presence behind the door. The night held its breath as the two of them faced each other across the threshold. 15 years of history, pain, preparation were about to collide in a moment that would change everything. The Huntress stood in the doorway, her eyes cold and sharp, scanning the small room with calculated patience. She had changed little over the years, still tall, still fierce. Still the unstoppable force that had haunted him for a decade and a half. He held her gaze without flinching. The words he had spoken moments ago hung in the air like a challenge. "You're finally here." He took a slow step forward, keeping his hands visible but ready. The memories of the past came rushing back, how she had cornered him, how she had always been one step ahead, and how 9 lives, people he had once called friends and allies, had been lost to her relentless pursuit. Each face, each name, came alive in his mind. The grief was sharp, but it was also fuel. He was ready now, more than ever, to face her. "You know why I'm here?" the Huntress said, her voice smooth, almost mocking. "You can't hide anymore." He shook his head slowly. "No, I've never hidden. I've been waiting." His voice was calm but heavy with the weight of 15 years of preparation. He had tracked her patterns, learned her weaknesses, and built strategies to finally turn the tables. She had thought she was hunting him, but now he had the advantage of time, patience, and planning. The room seemed to shrink around them. Every sound, the creaking floorboards, the wind brushing against the walls, the distant howl of a dog made the tension thicker. He remembered each of the 9 he couldn't save, and he silently promised that this time the cycle would end. She would not take another life. "Not tonight? You think you can stop me?" she asked, taking a step closer, the shadow of her presence filling the room. Her eyes, piercing and relentless, tried to intimidate him. "I don't think," he replied, his tone steady. "I know." For a moment, silence reigned. It was the kind of silence that carried the weight of history, of lost years, and of pain that never truly healed. Then slowly she circled him, testing, calculating, looking for any sign of weakness. He stayed still, feeling the adrenaline mix with calm focus. Every nerve, every muscle, was ready. 15 years had led to this moment, and he refused to falter now. The night outside seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash. Inside, two figures faced each other, shadows of past decisions and future consequences intertwined. Words had been exchanged, but actions would soon speak louder. The past was coming alive, and the hunt was no longer one-sided. The Huntress moved with silent precision, circling the room, testing every shadow, every corner. He stayed calm, letting her think she was in control, even as his heart raced. 15 years of running had taught him patience, and patience was his weapon now. One wrong step from her, one hesitation, everything could change. He knew she thrived on fear, on making her prey feel trapped. But he refused to give her that satisfaction. Moving slowly, he led her toward the hallway, guiding her without her realizing it. Each step was calculated, part of a plan he had perfected over countless sleepless nights. The walls of the house seemed to shrink around them as if the building itself was holding its breath. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying the faint scent of rain. He knew the terrain, every nook and hiding place around the property. If she stepped outside, he could use that knowledge to his advantage. He could feel the adrenaline building, a mix of fear and focus that sharpened his senses. He had survived this long because he had learned to control both. The Huntress paused, sensing something, her head tilting slightly. She was not reckless. She had been trained for this, but he had the edge of preparation, of knowing her moves before she made them. He ducked behind a piece of furniture, letting her pass, then quietly moved to another position. Every movement was silent, precise, rehearsed in his mind for years. Then she lunged, quick and unexpected, forcing him to react. They collided in a flurry of movement, testing each other's strength and skill. He didn't fight with rage. He fought with strategy, using her momentum against her. Each clash was a reminder of the years they had both spent preparing. Both hardened by the pursuit, finally he created space and backed away, keeping his eyes on her. The hunt was no longer just about survival, it was about proving that the fear she had caused for 15 years would end here. She realized the tables had turned, that the prey was no longer easy to corner. The game had changed, as they paused, breathing heavily. The night outside seemed to stretch endlessly, filled with tension and the promise of confrontation. He knew the chase was not over, but for the first time in years, he felt a sense of control. Every step, every plan, every memory of the 9 lost lives had led to this moment, and he would not falter now. The air in the room felt heavier as they faced each other, both breathing hard, bodies tense. The Huntress's eyes were sharp, calculating, but there was a flicker of something new: hesitation. He had studied her patterns for years, anticipated her moves, and now it was time to test every lesson he had learned. 15 years of fear and preparation boiled down to this moment. "You think you can stop me?" she asked, her voice steady, but laced with challenge. He met her gaze without flinching. "I don't think. I know." The weight of his words hung in the room, carrying the history of years lost, of lives taken, and of preparation. This was not a fight born of anger, but of purpose. Every move, every breath was deliberate. He would not let history repeat itself. She lunged first, swift and precise, but he sidestepped, letting her momentum carry her forward. He kept low, moving with quiet control, forcing her to overreach. Every step she took revealed her intentions, and he adjusted, using strategy instead of brute force. This was a dance of skill, a clash of minds as much as bodies. 15 years of fear had sharpened his instincts. For a moment, time seemed to slow. He remembered the 9 people he could not save, the faces of those lost, and the pain that had driven him to train, to prepare to survive. That memory became his strength. He did not hesitate, did not waver, and did not show weakness. She was strong, but he was ready, and the difference was preparation, patience, and purpose. They moved through the room, shadows chasing shadows, each testing the other's limits. He found an opening, a brief moment where her guard dropped, and he acted. Using her own momentum, he forced her back, creating distance. She stumbled, but quickly recovered, eyes narrowing in both respect and frustration. The hunt had shifted. The prey was no longer vulnerable. Breathing heavily, he held his ground. The room was silent, except for the distant sounds of the night, the world outside oblivious to the struggle within. The confrontation had reached its peak. The past, the losses, and the fear were all present, but he had control now. The Huntress realized it too. This was no longer a one-sided hunt. For the first time in 15 years, the balance had shifted, and the outcome was uncertain. The final moves were about to be made, and neither of them could step back now. The night was still, but the tension in the room was electric. He watched the Huntress carefully, noting every subtle movement, every shift in her posture. She had underestimated him, assuming 15 years of fear had left him weak. She had been wrong. Years of preparation, patience, and careful observation had brought him to this moment, and he was ready to end it. With a sudden move, he took control, using her momentum against her. She stumbled, caught off guard by his precision. He held his ground, steady and unwavering, as she regained her balance. For a moment, their eyes met, and he saw recognition there. Not fear, but respect. She understood that this was no longer a simple hunt. The tables had turned. He spoke softly, but with firm resolve. It ends here. No more lives will be lost. The weight of the 9 lives that had already been taken hung heavy between them, a silent reminder of why he had fought so long and so hard. She hesitated, realizing the truth in his words. The hunt had ended, not with victory or death, but with control. With justice tempered by strategy and experience, the room seemed to exhale as the tension began to lift. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the scent of rain and relief. He lowered his stance, signaling the end of the confrontation. She remained still for a moment, measuring him, and then slowly she nodded, acknowledging defeat without surrender. It was a silent agreement, an understanding forged over years of conflict and survival. He stepped back, keeping his eyes on her, but feeling a strange calm settle over him. The fear that had ruled 15 years of his life began to fade. The Huntress, formidable and relentless as she had always been, was no longer a threat. The lives lost could not be returned, but their memory fueled his determination, reminding him of the cost of survival and the strength of endurance. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the windows, he felt a sense of closure. The past was still there, etched into memory, but the future was open. He could finally breathe, finally move forward without looking over his shoulder. The hunt had ended, the nightmare was over, and for the first time in 15 years, he felt free. The silence of the room was no longer heavy. It was peaceful, a quiet testament to resilience, courage, and the human spirit that refuses to be broken.